fam, it's your boy Matty D. Happy Tuesday. We're almost at Wednesday, halfway through the week. Congrats on getting there. Let's take a look at the stories that mattered and how to make them actionable. I think today, moving forward, we're going to try to do this more regularly. So we're going to do just one a day as opposed to like the gold, silver, bronze. We'll pick one story and try to get through it quick, under 5 minutes, to make life easier for everybody. Today, the top story remains the IPCC report, and Canada is just being trash on every front. This is such an important report that came out. We'll try to do an interview this week about why it matters and get into like the details of the report itself and what it says, because so many people, including myself, are ignorant to a lot of the facts behind it. The things that are clear about it is it's not being actioned or taken seriously by the government. We just had today, we've got Jonathan Wilkinson here. We'll turn the volume up so you can listen to the Liberals' response to this report that the UN is saying it should be trigger a code red. Code red. Maybe we should be co-opting that language for a socialist revolution. But let's listen to what the Liberals have to say in the meantime.
Some fossil fuels like natural gas, you may be able to extract hydrogen without CO2, but at the end of the day, we can't be combusting carbon. And this report,
first question,
directly
just rambles. Typical
okay,
Liberal.
so given this report, given that you accept the report, and given the urgency of its findings, do you stand by pushing ahead with the Trans Mountain Pipeline project?
It's cost like $10 billion.
We stand by the actions that we've taken on climate change. I mean, this government has done an enormous amount. We just raised our target by about 50%. We brought out the most comprehensive climate plan that perhaps exists on the planet. We've made a commitment to net zero. We have an advisory body advising us on how to get there. We have put in place legislation that requires us to hit net zero by 2050 and puts in place mechanisms to ensure there's transparency. So yes, we are absolutely moving forward to address it, but we're doing it in a thoughtful way, which is we have to be sure that we're moving through a transition that will have impacts in different parts of the country and different parts of the economy. We need to ensure that we are, building an economy that's going to be prosperous going forward in the future at the same time that we're reducing emissions. That's what we promised to do. That's what we're delivering on.
With respect, sir, how can your government push ahead with that project when it's going to be twinning this pipeline that will increase the amount of oil from 300,000 barrels per day to 890,000 barrels per day, while at the same time agree with the UN Secretary General when he says this report must be sound a death knell for coal and fossil fuels?
Well, with respect, Katie, what we're doing is moving through a transition, and thoughtful people understand that we're moving through a transition that happens between now and 2050. Canada needs to ensure that in the context of that transition, it's extracting full value for its resources and using that money to push forward in terms of reducing emissions. Right now, we ship enormous amounts of oil by rail. We send oil almost exclusively to the United States, where we take a huge discount on the price.
God forbid
and
we
what we're
stop
doing
it.
is saying
I have to stop before I just start screaming. So Liberals, absolute trash is to be expected. Canada is failing in every single regard. I think we've seen this story pop up the other day. Just Trudeau left red-faced as Canada named the highest CO2 producer in the G7. This is per capita. I think Saudi Arabia is the actual highest producer, but we're the highest producer by capita. When we take a look at our embarrassing record, it is the worst of G7 nations. We've done absolutely nothing, less than nothing. Our emissions have increased according to the latest reports. So the Liberals have nothing to stand on, and thoughtful people will recognize the bullshit language of the ruling class and how they're killing us all through ecocide and classicide and just a continuing level of excuses to use our tax dollars, the public's funds, and instead of investing in anything that gives a return on that investment or makes our lives better, it goes to building pipelines and resource extraction and things that impedes on the indigenous nations and indigenous people of this land and makes our lives fundamentally worse while killing us. It is just, I'm just like so disgusted that this has not been a more seriously discussed topic anywhere in the news. This isn't something that is being fought for. I think like the big announcement from like the NDP today, I think it's the Ontario NDP, they're kind of trying to do more for housing in terms of supporting landlords and promising to build 69,000 houses. That's nothing. So people are not focused on this IPCC report, and I get it, it's confusing, it's boring, but we're all going to die unless we do something about it. So let's take a look at some simple things we can do, because we know we can't trust politicians, we can't trust political parties, and a lot of the climate movement is engaged in some kind of like weird liberal politicking as well. So who can we trust? I think very clearly the ones that we can trust are those who have been the guardians of the planet for so long and helped us survive so many years before the white people got involved in our capitalism. I think one of the most exciting ideas, and I haven't fully read this book yet, I'm just getting into it now, but the Red Deal, Indigenous Action to Save Our Earth. Highly recommend checking this book out. It's a book that talks about kind of the Green New Deal. It's popular, it's sexy, everyone's interested in the subject matter now. But this book dives deeper and says that not only should we kind of embrace the anti-capitalism elements of the Green New Deal, but we should go even further and embrace the revolutionary aspect, the hard left aspect of it, and then also in returning power to Indigenous communities and having them at the forefront, because they manage, I think, 80% of like the natural land. There's so many reserves and whatnot that they land, like forests and whatnot, that they help guard and protect. And because they have such experience of being stewards of the land, it's important that they have a voice in returning some stability to the environment, which is collapsing. So it talks about kind of like a few key pillars here. So one, what creates crisis cannot solve it. Everyone familiar with capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, we already understand that statement. Change from below and to the left. Again, working people, the left, yeah, sign me up. Politicians can't do what only mass movements can do. And I think this is a really important thing. I think for myself and a lot of people, we're done with electoralism. We've seen what happens with it. We saw the day the IPCC thing was announced that the NDP were sending in cops to go break up encampments protesting the logging of old growth forests. We saw the Ontario NDP fighting off vaccinations, which they later apologized and retracted. We saw the Alberta NDP defending cops and just making odd statements in general. And I think that it's very clear that we cannot trust our politicians. Time spent with them, money spent with them, sweat spent with them is wasted and is being used against us to make our demise a little bit quicker. And then from theory to action. So this book, supposedly, and I haven't read it yet, but it's supposed to be really good, and it breaks down everything that needs to be done into tasks. And we love tasks, we love things to do. So I'm going to start reading this book and highly encourage that you check it out too. It's called The Red Deal, Indigenous Actions to Save Our Earth. So that's a quick and easy thing to kind of get started. We can find the book on commonnotions.org. I think that's the lowest price I found, $12 for digital. Check it out. It looks like it's going to be really good. And then the other thing that I would also recommend is just signing up for their Patreon. They've got a really low subscription tier. I think it's like $2, which is awesome. And then with that, you get access to all of their content. So they do podcasts. I think they do videos every 2 weeks. And it's just kind of a good way to engage with the Indigenous communities. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to center the narrative and the discussion around Indigenous communities and returning power to them, landback and all that good stuff. And this is kind of like at the forefront. Red Nation and Red Media, they do a lot of really good stuff. So they're kind of like at the forefront, but also check out the groups around you. Just like check on Twitter, Google for groups around you, coastal protectors, forest protectors, defenders, things like that. And you'll usually be able to find a few groups, and they usually have very simple tasks to get involved. I've signed up for a few, and it's really simple. It's just like, hey, will you sign this petition? Hey, will you donate a few dollars? And like, I'll just give like $5 because I'm poor. But it's just a really simple way to engage with those within your network, because long term, we want a revolution. And to get to a revolution, we need to build locally. We need to start connecting our networks. And I think that as we kind of focus on the one big player, which is, I think, Red Media and Red Nation, we can also take that experience and that excitement and translate it locally to the groups around us. So please seek those out in your neighborhood. Easiest probably found on Twitter, Facebook, and just Googling them. I think that's going to cut it for a week. Fuck, we're at 8 minutes. I'm so sorry. We'll get this shorter and shorter until we get to 5 minutes, and we'll try to do one of these a day. Thank you so much for tuning in. Sending you love and solidarity. Be careful out there, because the politicians are looking out for us, so it's up to us to rely on each other. Take care of yourself. Peace.
I don't think the king woke up one morning, said all the people